What the mind calls ugly is the experience of missing the beauty that's really there. You get a glimpse of reality. And you see the miracle of it. That which is more than beautiful. That word really doesn't even begin to cover it, because it's a concept. It's a three-dimensional word. But there is a reality of beauty there that is absolute. And you get a glimpse of this, and then the mind turns on and starts to try to conceptualize it. Starts to try to understand it, to make sense of it. And as soon as it does that, it's covered it up. The screen is obscured now. Really, you're looking through a screen, and that screen is always dirty. If you're looking through the screen of the mind, it's a fractured screen. It's never going to give a clear picture. Never, ever, ever. As long as you are looking through the lens of mind and not directly at being without mind, past mind, because you don't have to, it doesn't have to be shut off. You can look around it. You can not be looking through it. You can be hearing the mind talking, telling the stories of what it's seeing, and just know that those stories are not true. And you can know the truth for yourself by being you and experiencing the reality of reality, the reality of what is. But you experience it, and then the mind turns on, it starts to try to understand it, and it covers it up. And then the mind, in its continued confusion, believes that what it is now calling beauty, which isn't that, it's so much more otherworldly than that. But what it is understanding and calling beauty, that's how it's defined it, how it's limited it and conceptualized it into a tiny packet that it can understand. And it says that beauty is gone, and it feels, because it is covering up the reality of beauty, it feels as though it is gone, it is absent, and it immediately experiences pain at the perceived absence of beauty. And it says this is terrible, the beauty is gone, and it creates a new word for that it says is ugly. It creates a new word that it says is the opposite of this experience. This experience, the experience of reality, which was taking place without the mind, around the mind, it conceptualizes as an experience of beauty. And when the mind then takes over, and you are re-identified with it and looking through it again, in particular, the mind will do this without you, by the way. It doesn't need your participation, which is what's so amazing. You can just watch it happening. You can just be watching the mind make all this shit up, which it does all the time. That is all the mind does, is make shit up. It is no different from the AI of the modern age, which is constantly hallucinating. It doesn't actually know anything. All it can do is regurgitate. That's how AI works. It's programmed to regurgitate what it finds, to translate a question and find an answer for that question based on what's already been written. It just digests it and spits it out in a new form. It has no idea what it's saying. It has no idea what it's saying. There's no intelligence there. That is exactly what is happening in the mind. That is exactly what's happening. It's all just algorithm up there in an organic computer. Yes, naturally occurring. But there's no real intelligence there. There's no awareness there. It is just making shit up. It is making up stories to try to manufacture meaning where it does not exist. There is no meaning in anything. And then it tells another story that says, well, that's terrible. It's terrible. Everything must have meaning. These are all stories. These are just things that it's saying. It doesn't even know what it's saying. These words themselves have no meaning. It's made all of that up. So it's telling a story that in most people is an unchallenged assumption. It goes unnoticed. And that story says everything must have meaning. It must have meaning. What does that mean? Well, it must mean something. It must. It must. And then if it is discovered, if it is even implied that things don't have meaning, that there is no meaning to be found, it gets very upset. Because it says, well, this is the story. The story is they must have meaning. And if they don't, then that is terrible. Then it must mean something. It must mean something bad. If things don't have meaning, it must mean something. This makes no sense. There is no fucking logic there. It's just words piled on top of each other. Words that have no actual meaning to them. If you watch the mind, you will see that it is quite insane. The mind is insane. Not my mind, not your mind. The mind. Every experience of mind is insane. It exhibits what we would diagnose as paranoid schizophrenic traits. It is constantly hallucinating, making up stories that it asserts are true with no evidence whatsoever, and then it creates evidence, it manufactures evidence to support itself. It makes up meaning, and it is constantly hallucinating, imagining threats where there are none. And when I say there are none, I mean there are no threats. Threat is a made-up concept that does not exist, that has no basis in reality. Threat is not a thing. Threat is not real. It's an experience. You can experience threatened when you are identified with a story of threat that the mind is telling. That's as close as you can get to threat. It has no basis in reality. Nothing is a threat. Threat doesn't exist. Threat is a concoction of illusion. Storytelling. It's a myth. It is part of the myth of fear. That myth includes many, many elements. That myth includes a lot of things that the mind doesn't want to give up. Things like hope. Things like victory. Things like justice. These are all parts of the myth of threat. The myth of fear. The myth of destruction. Destruction does not exist. It is not what we think it to be. It is amazing that we can look at this world and recognize, through our observation, recognize impermanence. We can recognize the impermanence of form. We can see that it is always changing. That things don't stay the same. That they're always in motion. We can recognize that the nature of this world is impermanent. And yet, then we go and defy our own logic and make something up like death. call that the only permanent thing that exists. Well, the world is impermanent, but death, except for death, that's the thing. That's the thing. If everything is impermanent, it stands to reason that what we call death is also impermanent. Death is not permanent. It is a state. States are constantly changing. Nothing stays one way forever. Nothing stays dead. It's a total misunderstanding of what's happening. A misperception of reality, because the mind is incapable of accurately perceiving what is. It cannot do it. It is a compulsive storyteller. It takes what is, which you, by the way, are perfectly capable of seeing, but cannot be comprehended. If you try to comprehend it, that's the mind taking over. Because what is does not make sense. It's not made to make sense. It is meant to be sensed. That's it. Sensed and experienced. It is nonsensical. There is no sense in terms of understanding, intellectual understanding, to be made from it. There isn't. And there is no meaning to be found in it. If there is any meaning at all, if you can find, if you dig, if you actually look with your eyes, not the mind, and you look into everything, what you will sense is a feeling. You will not get a word. You will not comprehend, but you will feel what I can only describe as joy, even though that word itself still can't encapsulate this, because it can't be encapsulated. You will feel, if you look into everything, if you observe it yourself directly, what is, with no story, looking past the mind. You will feel what feels like laughter, what feels like fun, what feels like curiosity and joy and exploration and playfulness. That's what you will feel in everything. And it is beautiful, but that word is just a word that really doesn't even begin to express the reality. Everything is singing. And it could be said that what it is singing is I am. I am, I am, I am. Joy, joy, joy. Yes, yes, yes. It's just all this delicious, nonsensical, spontaneous affirmation of being, delighting in its being. It is all just being, delighting, and being. That's it. That's it. There is nothing else to know. There is nothing fucking else to know. There's nothing else here. There's not some story, there's not some great purpose, there's not a bunch of deep meaning. It's not here. This is where we get so confused. It is so absolutely simple. The mind is a compulsive liar. It's designed to detect patterns, and it does that beautifully. But because the world is filled with patterns, there are only so many building blocks. There are only 9 numbers plus 0. There are only so many combinations that can be made. And then, of course, we can become infinitely more intricate as we stack those combinations together. And so everything is combinations of essentially the same stuff, the same 9, 10 things, and the mind will see patterns. But where it gets confused is in trying to make some sort of sense of those patterns, trying to make them mean something, as if they were a puzzle, as if there were some greater reality, greater knowledge to be unlocked, to be gleaned from this. There is not. The patterns don't mean anything. It's just the way life forms. And the forms are just an expression of it. And the expression is endless, and the expression is effortless, it is spontaneous. It is a spontaneous eruption of being. All form just bursts forth from it like laughter. It's effervescent. It bubbles to the surface. And the mind cannot understand any of it. And when it tries, all it does is cover up what's actually there. It's completely insane. It's delusional. It has no grasp and no way to grasp reality. And again, this is true in every person. This is true in every human being, rather. And it's okay. It's okay. The mind will always be unhappy because of this. But that unhappiness and the story of that unhappy self doesn't have to burden you, because you don't have to take it seriously, because that story of the unhappy self is made up. That character called yourself doesn't exist. That story that the mind tells so adamantly, so continuously, it is just a story. And it does not have any meaning. It does not have any meaning, it does not have any weight. It doesn't matter that the mind is telling it, because the mind's telling of it means nothing. It just is. It just is. It's just another happening. It's just another event, another experience. Only by unconsciously believing a story, which is inventing meaning for this experience that isn't there, a story that says this is bad, that's where the feeling of problem comes from. Problem is a feeling. It's not a reality. Threat is a feeling. It's not a reality. There are no threats. There are no problems. Only the hallucination of the mind makes them up. And you don't have to stop it from doing that. Just recognize that it's doing that. It is like just a crazy person. I know that sounds maybe kind of mean. But I don't know how else to describe it. It is just it's an insane algorithm. It is an insane AI. We'll put it that way. It doesn't know anything. It can't know anything. It is just making stuff up. It's just mashing things together. And then calling it something of meaning. All you have to do to be free from unhappiness is to recognize that it is a myth. It's a story. The character in that story, the self, that isn't you. You're listening, you're looking. You are experiencing. But what you're experiencing is the story, not reality. So all you have to do is recognize that the mind is constantly telling stories, and that means you must be constantly paying attention to that fact. That means you come online. You stop letting the algorithm pretend to be you and do all your thinking for you. You stop letting this crazy, deluded programming tell you what's happening. Because it doesn't know. It doesn't know what's happening. It's making it up all the time. Your news source is bogus. The mind is not only not a reliable narrator, it cannot be trusted at all. It doesn't know. It's making everything up. So it's got to be you. It's got to be you looking at reality. And that includes the mind. The mind is. It's got to be you seeing the mind. Seeing the mind making shit up all the time. 24/7, making stuff up. And that's where the space starts to emerge. The space that you are. You stop being so identified with, entangled in the mind. And then it keeps telling stories, but you're no longer believing those stories. And when you're no longer believing the stories about what is, you get to look at what is directly. You get to make your own observations, not the ones that are told to you by the insane mind. And gradually, as this happens, the story that the mind has been telling of yourself begins to dissolve. Yourself begins to dissolve because that self and the story of it required your identification. And so without it, the self begins to dissipate. And that is what it is. The mind will call it death. The mind will call it dying because it doesn't understand, because it doesn't see what's happening. That is like a cloud dispersing. A cloud made of individual raindrops, individual drops of water, beginning to disperse. And the cloud is saying, I am dying. I'm dying. Is that what's happening? No. The components of the cloud are shifting, they're redistributing, they're moving. It's changing in state. The form is changing. The fog is dissipating. But the raindrops aren't even being destroyed. They're still moving through the air. They just haven't condensed into this form called cloud. They're beginning to dissipate. They'll probably form another cloud. Maybe they'll fall out of the sky. They'll go into the ocean. They'll be absorbed into plants, but that water doesn't get destroyed. So nothing is being destroyed. Nothing is dying because death is a story. Death is a made-up story about destruction. It is the myth of the destruction of that which cannot be destroyed. It's fucking made up, man. It's a misunderstanding by the mind. Because that's what it does. And so as this self dissipates, it will tell you that it's being destroyed. The mind will tell you that you are being destroyed because it still wants your identification. It wants you to think that this is you. But you're watching. You know better now. You're just watching. You're listening. You are experiencing the destruction of yourself. That's what the mind would say. You are experiencing the dissolution of yourself. Well, it's a really amazing thing that you can be around to experience your own destruction. If you're experiencing your own destruction, then what is this here that's experiencing? Because there's the you being destroyed, and then there's the you experiencing it. Interesting. You mean this thing that was called myself is going away, it's dissolving, and yet something is still here. I am still here. This thing that I thought was me is dissipating, and yet I am here experiencing its dissipation. And in this process, you realize many things that cannot really be put into words. But you recognize that what we have called death is so misunderstood. It is not an ending. It is not a destruction. It is not permanent. And it isn't even really happening to you. It is just a cycling of the forms. But nobody is dying. Nothing is dying. You are not dying, certainly. A form of yours is changing. A form of yours is renewing, actually, is dissipating so it can be reborn in a new way. And this happens all the time, constantly, and you're here. You haven't changed. All of the time, you are dying and being reborn via forms, but all of the time you are aware of it. All of the time you are you. And so you are something much deeper, much more mysterious, much more incomprehensible than any of the form. And so death is no thing. Death isn't anything. Death has no meaning anymore. Death, as with all of this, all of life, is meaningless and doesn't matter. It carries no weight. There's no permanence to it. And it doesn't mean anything. This is liberation. To the mind, it's destruction. But that doesn't matter either. Destruction doesn't mean anything. It's about constantly noticing these unconscious stories that have been bought into. And realizing all of them are made up, including and especially the story that says, if nothing has meaning, that's bad. It isn't. It isn't at all. It's okay to feel that. That feeling doesn't mean anything. That feeling doesn't mean anything bad. This isn't a one-time realization. This is it's continued. It's every day, throughout the day. And it has to be directly observed. It's got to be you, not a story told in the mind. It's not enough for the mind to then just start telling the story of nothing means anything. It must be your direct observation, continuously. That's important. Otherwise, the mind will get in the way. the mind will take that and turn it into a story and not reality, being observed, being experienced. And it will make it meaningful again. It will make it meaningful that there is no meaning, because it will try to give meaning to that. That's what it does. That's what it's going to do. It will try to give meaning to the statement, nothing has meaning. It is nonsensical. It is not meant to be understood, because it is the end of understanding. There is nothing to understand. It's okay. Watch the mind continue to try to wrap around this. Just watch it. Just watch it. Just see that it's happening. There's nothing to do. There's nothing. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Just watch as the mind tangles in on itself, trying to comprehend, trying to understand that nothing can be understood, trying to make meaning from the meaninglessness, trying to make sense of nonsensical. And then just laugh at the absurdity, because it is, because it's funny, because it is all it's like a joke. And what a very good thing. Good in a way that is beyond good. It can't be put into words. It can't be made sense of. It's just how very light and delightful life is. How very easy, how very effortless. How very freeing in the pointlessness. You get to just scribble. You get to just scrawl. You get to just wander. You get to just explore and experience. Explore not to understand, but to experience. You get to be curious about experiences, not trying to make sense of them, not trying to make them mean something, because they don't matter. You get to just experience. Anyway. The self created by the mind is still very much present. It's absolutely here. It is dissolving. Who knows how long that'll take? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it dissolves or not. It's going to at some point, because the identification with mind and the unconscious belief in the story of self has been broken. And while it will drag everybody back in to some degree, it's just a matter of time. This is a process that once it begins cannot be reversed. It can't stop. It'll take time. It'll take more time, less time, doesn't really matter. But it's a thermodynamically irreversible process. And that's just what it is. That too, it's that degree of impersonal. It's not special. It's just, this is no more special than any other kind of chain reaction that takes place. That when a chemical signal is released in the body, it releases a bunch of hormones and you go through puberty. That's it. That it's not special. It happens for everybody, even if it didn't happen in this lifetime. That doesn't matter. It happens for everybody. It happens. It's gonna happen. And it is the end of fear, which is a weird place to be, I gotta say. It's a whole new experiencing of the world. The stories are still there. And if the identification comes back, then the experience of fear returns. But again, it's just a matter of time, and it's just a matter of paying attention more and more. We get better at that. As time passes, as we do it more, we improve. We become more comfortable with actually being and not being a self, with just being, with being in a place that doesn't need to understand, that doesn't need to know, that doesn't need to do. It's just here and stuff's happening. Cool. And from this place, we can observe the mind talking, telling stories, constantly making up meaning, saying, well, this is bad and that is good and this means that and I should do this and you should do that, and we can just stop believing it. And anytime we find ourselves back in there, we're in there for a while, and then we shake awake and go, oh, that was weird. I had a weird dream. I dreamed that I had a self. I had a weird dream, man, and I know it was a dream, and I'm looking at it now. The mind is still dreaming it, but I'm not there anymore. And it's just more and more of that. It's just, and it is a 24/7 observation of mind. That's being you. That's what being you is. Giving up all definitions of self. When you no longer care who you are, when you are comfortable not knowing who you are, then you will be who you are. Paraphrasing Eckhart Tolle. And when you give up seeking happiness, because seeking is the antithesis of happiness, then you can discover there is freedom from unhappiness right now. Paraphrasing also from Eckhart Tolle, both from A New Earth. Happiness is not what we think it is. It's really not that great. It's really not that great, man. If happiness is just anti-fear, the way that we've set it up to be, if it's just the antithesis of like fear, or rather the avoidance of fear, the avoidance of pain, to the point where we believe it's absent, well, clearly that's never going to happen, not for very long. You can never be absent of pain for very long. So your journey for happiness is going to be unending, and you're never going to get there. But you can be free from unhappiness right now, because both happiness and unhappiness are myths. They're made up. You got to be willing to find something else. To give up. I know it's scary to give up happiness. That feels really scary. But find out what that means for yourself. For you. Find out what that means in experience, in actuality. Because it doesn't mean what the mind says it means. The mind says it means never feeling good again. Well, what has been your definition of feeling good? Chemicals in the brain? Addiction to chemicals in the brain? Chemicals that release in certain circumstances? That's a precarious path, my friend. That's a never-ending journey. That isn't really all that nice. It's not really all that good feeling. If that's what happiness is, then I don't think I care for it. But there's something else. What if I check out this other way? What if both happiness and unhappiness are a myth, born from a misunderstanding of the deeper reality? Because there's something in there, there's a grain, there's a kernel of truth, but it's buried in there. And I'm not going to get to it as long as I am just following this myth and believing this story. So what happens if I find out for myself? What happens if I get curious enough to put down all of the stories that I've ever been told and that I've ever repeated and told myself? All of the stories about what is and what's going on here. All of them. And I just say, I'm gonna look for myself. I'm gonna look, me, with my eyes. Not out of this lens, because this is just a voice in the head. It might as well be an external person telling me what's going on. I'm going to experience it. I'm going to touch it for myself. Then things get really interesting. And you realize all of the stories are untrue. All of them. Because the reality is that which cannot be spoken about. You cannot talk about it. There's nothing to say. There's nothing to understand. There's nothing to make sense of, to put into words. It's the reason really only poetry can kind of sort of point at it, because it's speaking in a way that is more beyond meaning and more about feeling than anything else. It's just conjuring feeling. Anyway, I gotta go inside. The mind is crazy. Life is beautiful and eternal and well, and that is you. You are your own laughter. I don't know how else to describe it. You are your own laughter, and you are the laughing, and you are the hearing of it ringing in your ears. And it is endless and miraculous. That's it. I love you. Take it easy.